Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this very exciting special event. My name is Ebony Goodfield, and I am a student at Columbia School of General Studies, a proud Navy veteran, and vice president of MilVets, the largest veteran student organization in the Ivy League. Much like the movie you're about to witness tonight, my work here at Columbia advocates for the veteran stories untold, the marginalized, and the silenced. This past year, my peers and I have worked for gender equality and inclusion in veteran communities by creating an intercollegiate fellowship program in partnership with General Studies and Barnard's Athena Center for Leadership. This program between Barnard students and GS Women Veteran seeks to build community and cultivate the skills needed to make real change from within. As an example, over the last 2 years, women student veterans were leading voices in tailoring the language of Columbia's updated anti-bullying policies. This progress, led by veterans, women, and allies, highlights that the stories once untold by non-traditional students, especially by veterans, impacts not only GS, but Columbia University and beyond. So I am honored to be here with all of you this evening to celebrate The Inspection, a film written and directed by a GS graduate and fellow veteran, Elegance Bratton. Welcome, Elegance. Elegance Bratton is an award-winning and boundary-breaking director, writer, and producer. He began making films as a U.S. Marine after spending a decade homeless. His work captures stories untold with an intention to show the universal power of our shared humanity, something I deeply believe in. Elegance's films have played in over 200 film festivals worldwide, including the New York Film Festival, Toronto, Sundance, Outfest, Doc NYC, and the Black Star Film Festival. He's recently named one of Variety's 10 directors to watch for 2023. After tonight's film, please remain in your seats for a conversation between Elegance and the Dean of Columbia GS, Lisa Rosenmesh. Please also join us for a reception downstairs in the lobby once the conversation concludes. Now, to introduce his film, I'd like to invite Elegance Bratton to the podium.
Wow. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm going to do this so I don't have to lean over. I still have to lean over. But no, this is like to tell you that it's hard for me to really express how much this means to me. I was a GS student. I'm a GS graduate. Thank you. And it's funny, I kind of had like a kind of bifurcated childhood in a way where on one end I was always told that I was smart and that I had potential, but on the other end I was always kind of treated as if the best things in life were not for me, were not for people like me. I came to GS at the age of 31, and I distinctly remember when I graduated from high school thinking that an Ivy League school was a place that I could never really thrive, that I did not belong. And I spent a lot of my intervening years between high school and my first semester at GS just trying to do the thing that I'm supposed to do, the things that people told me were the limits for me. And it ended up in me being homeless for 10 years. I was homeless from the age of 16 to 25. My mother kicked me out for being gay. So when I got the call from School of General Studies that I had been accepted, I made a resolution to myself in that moment that from that day forward, I would indulge genius. And to me, what that means is, a lot of us are living our lives thinking that the best outcomes, that we don't deserve them. We don't deserve real love. We don't deserve to have the job of our dreams. We don't deserve to feed our minds and our souls. And to indulge genius is to do the opposite of that, is to say that if you see it for yourself and you're willing to make the sacrifices to get there, that anything is possible. And to me, going to a school like Columbia was the proof that anything was possible for me. So I am just overwhelmed with gratitude. Thank you, School of General Studies, for putting my film in this beautiful building, a building I hadn't even been in yet. When I was here, people were protesting about building this place, and I'm like, this is better than McDonald's. But yeah, this story comes from my own personal experience. Like I said, I spent 10 years of my life homeless for being gay. My mother kicked me out of the house. At the age of 25, I joined the Marine Corps, and I was the lowest moment in my life. I thought I was absolutely worthless and that I had no future. I was fortunate enough to have a drill instructor say to me that you are valuable, you do matter, because you have a responsibility to protect the Marine to your left and to your right. And that's why I made this film. I made this film for anyone who's ever felt disregarded, anyone who's ever felt overlooked, to know that you are enough by the end of watching the inspection, and to know that the reason why you matter is because you have a responsibility to protect the person to your left and to your right. We are all interdependent on one another for survival, and the sooner we embrace that reality, the sooner we get to live in the world of genius, right, where we get to appreciate each other equally. So thank you for being here. I will be back for the Q&A, and I can't wait to get to know each and every one of you. Yeah, I'll see you guys in a bit. Thank you so much.
Wow. Elegance Bratton.
Thank you. Thank you.
I am Lisa Rosen-Metch. I have the deep honor to be the Dean of the Columbia School of General Studies, where Elegance Bratton graduated. I want to put a quick plug to my beloved predecessor, Peter J. Ahn,
That's right.
who would be incredibly proud of you.
Thank you.
So this is the third time that I've seen the film,
Oh my
Elegance.
gosh. All of them for free.
What? No. I saw it the first time on August 8th.
Thank you.
When you closed out the New York Film Festival. You had Jeremy Pope, Gabrielle Union, some of the cast. You had Chester,
Yes.
who is, do you want to put a plug of Chester?
Yeah, Chester is my love of my life. We met actually in the summer after I graduated from GS, but before I started Tisch Grad Film, and we make everything together. And this movie definitely would not exist. It wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for Chester, as a partner supporting me, but as a producer, we fought against all the odds to make this film, and Chester just held it down. So I wish he was here, but we've got dogs.
Yes. In a beautiful home in Baltimore.
Yeah,
right?
well, we're actually in Los Angeles right now.
Oh, you're in Los Angeles,
Yeah, we were
okay.
supposed to leave. We came out to LA in March for a project that ultimately fell through while we were editing this. And then while we were there, we found out it was going to Toronto and going to New York. And literally, it just feels like now, I always used to joke, I'm bi-coastal curious, I think now I'm officially bi-coastal.
Yeah. So I saw it the second time, November 18th, when it opens up in film.
Thank you.
In the movies. I took my family. It is just amazing. And then here tonight, on behalf of faculty, students, alumni, we could not be more proud to call you one of our Columbians. Earlier tonight, one of your professors, Joseph Surratt, the new dean of Columbia College, was here. I'm just going to open my phone, another one of your professors who sent a quick note, Farrah Griffin, who I'm just going to read a quick note. Farrah Jasmine Griffin, who was a founding chair of the Department of African American and African Diaspora Studies here. And she just said, Elegance, who I adore, I am so sorry not to be there in person. But she wrote, From the first time we spoke during office hours, I knew Elegance Bratton was special. A visionary, a brilliant, a seer, who had much to teach us if we were only willing to look through his eyes. His films are an invitation to do just that. He possesses the gift of the greatest storytellers, the power to move us through narrative. The Inspection does just this. It is a beautiful film that has the potential to change you.
Oh. That's very sweet.
And so on that note, and we're going to talk a little bit, and then we're going to open up, because I know there's a lot of friends, family, people who just admire and love you, and I know want to have the chance to ask questions and have a chance to talk with you. But maybe you could just start, Elegance, and how this film came to be, and the inspiration behind it.
Sure. There's kind of two tracks to that story. The emotional origin of the film comes from my own experience. When I was 16 years old, I was kicked out of my house for being gay, and I spent the next 10 years of my life homeless. And, it wasn't as if my mother, pretty much, for instance, when I got into School of General Studies, I called my mom and let her know that I got into Columbia, and she didn't pick up the phone. When I graduated from Columbia, I called her and let her know I graduated, and she didn't pick up the phone. When I got into Tisch, same thing. When I graduated from Tisch, and maybe like a few months after that graduation, I got a chance. I called her, and I would call her for everything, anything that happened. If a movie got into a festival, I'd call her. If I won an award at a festival, I would call her.
Showed that here.
Yeah. I would always just let her know, because my mom had me at the age of 16, and we're from New Jersey, and I'm a child of the 80s. So, my mom kind of grew up with that Reaganite stigma on her as an unwed black teen mom, and not to excuse necessarily anything that I went through growing up with her, but I do believe that a part of that abuse that I dealt with was because, she was in a cultural moment where mothers like her were seen as like vectors of societal ills. They're gonna, you're a teen mom, you're gonna give birth to a crackhead, you're gonna give birth to a criminal, and what you make is not useful. And I would call my mom to let her know that what she made was useful, and that in hopes that, it would make it better for her. So a part of making the film is to commemorate our relationship, as fraught and as complicated as it is. I felt a need to do that, and I was hoping that it would reach her. Unfortunately, my mom was killed about 3 days after the movie got greenlit. So she didn't get a chance to watch the movie. But the beautiful thing is I got the opportunity to clean her home, a home that she'd moved to, I had never been to before. And when I was in there, she had all of my notices in the home, all of the reviews of my shorts, my newspaper clippings, things like that. So, I made this movie to reach people like my mom, right? And in hopes that they would see Gabrielle Union in this movie and take that as a warning. And I also made this movie, for people like myself who have been told that, you're not enough and there's no future for you, as proof that there is one, right? If this film exists and you find out who made it and you're in that situation, I hope that it inspires you and drives you to find your value in life, And then in terms of bringing the story to screen, I wrote the first draft of this in 2017, and actually I'd sold my first TV show, My House on Viceland, and I finally had a little bit of money in my account, and I decided I had never been at that point, I had never been in a situation where I didn't need a real job. So I'm like, wait, I don't have to get a job for 6 months? I better write a feature, Wow. So I wrote 3, and The Inspection was one of them. And I went to my husband, Chester, and I was like, Chester, which one of these should I make? And Chester was like, the thing you do best as a storyteller is bringing the audience to a place that they can't go without you. And you need to introduce yourself through this film. And people should get to know you as much as they see what you put on screen. So the inspection was that. So I went, I had a friend of mine, also a Columbia College graduate. He's a child. My friend Zach Vargas Sullivan, who at the time was just hired as a junior executive at A24. So I called him up. I'm like, bro, I wrote this script that's gonna make your career, man. All you gotta do is open up your email and say yes. Just read it and say yes. And he read it and he was like, I don't think this script is ready for A24 just yet. So then I went out and I applied to every lab in the world. I got rejected by every lab in the world. And then I kind of swore it off. And then Chester, yet again, kind of took the reins and applied to Film Independent Producing Lab. And we got in and applied to Fast Track, which is like a pitching summit in Hollywood, and we got in. And so we pitched it to about 70 people in 3 days, 70 different companies in 3 days. I got 12 offers. So I sent my friend Zach a text, a GIF of Harry Potter riding the train to Hogwarts, waving goodbye. And I was like, man, the train's leaving the station, man. You want to jump on? You can jump on. And A24 jumped on. So, that's kind of the origins of the story.
It's incredible. I'm just listening to the courage, the strength that you had in putting this in, seeing it the third time, and this is a filmmaker's thing. I noticed, which I hadn't noticed before, that Jeremy Pope, the character, French,
yes.
Ellis, looks in the mirror a lot.
Yes.
And
yes.
so this was something, and I'm not an expert I'm a sociologist, on
right.
filmmaking, but I noticed even at the very end, it's not a mirror, but it's like a reflection. Yes. And I just, on that French coming to terms with himself, all of that in the don't ask, don't tell era,
right.
being in the Marines. But how did you find the courage and strength to put your most vulnerable and personal experiences on screen for us to watch?
Oh, man, I don't know if I found it. I kind of feel like for Black filmmakers, at least the ones that I've grown up looking at as an example, a lot of times they're as famous as anything that they make. And I think that's, not to get too industry bogged down, but Hollywood is a precedent kind of industry, and celebrity is the fuel that drives all of it. Even movies that you think are small and independent are kind of anti that. Trust and believe these studios are using the money that they've made off of huge celebrities to be able to finance those risk-taking films. So I kind of understood very early that if I wanted a career in this and I wanted to live the way I want to live, that I would have to put myself on the line. I think that is kind of historically aligned with just the Black body in the United States and the idea of you come from a legacy of slavery where for hundreds of years you're thought of as a piece of property to be possessed. And I think the biggest challenge for African Americans very often is self-possession. When you live in a world that defines your value through the lens of commodity, you never really belong to yourself. So I realized that me belonging to myself was novel, and that it was also useful in order to help me get stories made and to elevate me. And literally Los Angeles, everybody makes movies in Los Angeles. Like everybody. I was at the gas station the other day, and the woman at the store was like, I saw The Inspection. That was good. You should make a movie about my life. So, in that regard, I don't know if I found the bravery as much as I accepted, what my particular journey to this career would entail.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite part
of the movie? Oh my gosh, it's not the paycheck. No. I think, honestly, the part that kind of resonates with me most, it's the opening, because the apartment that he visits to get his birth certificate is a recreation of the home I was kicked out of. And I never set foot in that home again. And it wasn't for lack of trying. I tried very hard. So I had this moment on set where I was like overcome by the physical location and the kind of sense memory of it all, of like, wow, it's taken me 17 years and I had to build it myself. But I got back in those doors and I was able to express how I felt in that moment. And that, for me, is just like, it's not so much the watching of the, I mean, I love this film. It means a lot to me. I'm very proud of it. But that scene in particular is just a real milestone in my development as a human being.
Yeah. Gabrielle Union, what did you say to her when you called her?
She's so kind. She tells the story in a way that really preserves my dignity. Gabrielle is my mom's favorite actress.
Oh, wow.
And is that Maggie? It's not Maggie. Oh, that's not Maggie. Sorry, I thought that was Maggie for a second. Maggie's my doc agent. I was like, I know she didn't just show up. I went to Gabby and I was like, first of all, Gabrielle Union is my mother's favorite actress.
Yeah.
And all the time where I was calling her, trying to get her to respond to me, I just knew that if I casted Gabrielle Union in it, somebody in her life was gonna tap her on her shoulder and say, guess what? Mm-hmm. You need to watch this movie. So I told Gabby that, you know, and she didn't believe in herself at first at all. She tried to talk me out of hiring her at a certain point. Mm-hmm. But I just knew that, I told, you know, in my community at least, Gabby's an icon.
Of course.
And my mom was that girl, like in our neighborhood, who was that girl. She was very pretty. Everybody wanted to get at her. But she was also very tough, and she didn't take much nonsense. And when I see Gabrielle Union's, like, just her presence in Hollywood, she's got those qualities. She's stunning to look at, but she's sharp. And she's not really about any sort of mess. She only takes the real, you know, and I felt like those qualities were what this character needed. Mm-hmm. And then I just, you know, like I said, my mom, you know, she was killed. So Gabby's wearing my mother's jewelry in this film. She's using my mother's Bible in this film. Mm. And
the dress at graduation was gorgeous.
Oh,
too,
thank you.
know?
That was a story and a half. Because, you know, when you make movies, especially studio films, everybody has an opinion, but there are certain opinions that have to be counted. And that dress, oh my gosh, that was a lot of opinions to get her in that. But you know, I'm grateful because Gabby brought my mom back to life for me. And through the process of making the film, I got a piece of the closure that I never got with my mom.
Wow. Incredible. What do you hope people take away from this film?
I hope that, number one, regardless of how you feel about the military, I think what's undeniable is that the U.S. military is a place where, you know, the failure of the American dream, those people who are unable to achieve it are often pushed into that direction. And I think we live in a culture where the right and the left of it all, things become so polarized that we forget about the human beings in the middle whose lives are put on the line behind our ideologies. So I would hope that, you know, people would be kinder to homeless vets and to, when I was going to School of General Studies, you know, we would talk about it as veterans, just our anxiety about entering a workforce where people thought we were just maniacs or our PTSD would make us unable to work or something like that. And I hope that people watch this movie and will, regardless of their thoughts about the politics of everything, will look at these individuals as human beings. So that's something that's important to me. But most important is, like, everything I do is about starting a conversation between left and right. In the Marines, I learned how to talk to people who are very different from me. And because of the kind of wartime element, we understood that we really couldn't be polarized even if we were in wild disagreement with one another, we had to find that middle ground, because if you're sent to a battlefield and that guy has a grudge against you, you may not make it home. So I'm hoping that this film can be an example of how we can talk across our differences, across our politics, and really focus on what's most important, which is our shared humanity.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for...
Thank you. Thank you. And I just...
Ebony, we are so proud of our Mill Vets. We are so proud to be the school that has more veterans than, double the whole Ivy League, 3 times, 4 times, and we're so proud that...
now everybody's copying Columbia.
Yeah, everybody is copying
Harvard's
Columbia.
got a program.
Every Ivy League college. Princeton is taking more veterans, which was so Elegance. We could not be more proud. I know, Ebony, I know all of our Mill Vets, our students are just so proud that you are one of us. So
thank you.
Thank
you, guys. Thank you.
So speaking of, if we could talk about Columbia for a few moments.
Of
course. If you could tell us how, and I know then you went to the Tisch School of Arts at the other campus on the other side of the city that we won't talk about, but how studying here at Columbia, how did that help shape your work, your work as a writer, as a filmmaker? A couple of the questions: did you have a favorite class, a favorite professor?
Who's here?
a favorite memory, anything you could share to talk about your time at Columbia.
I loved my time at Columbia. In terms of how it shaped me, I tried to go to college maybe a dozen or so times before getting admitted into Columbia, and each time I failed out. Mostly due to economics. I was trying to work a job, go to school, pay rent, and mind you, again, I left home at 16. So when I was trying to do these things, I didn't even really understand what rent was exactly. I just knew that I had to find a way to get this money together, so I would fail out. So when I got here, I realized that I couldn't fail out of here. I had to finish this, and this was the hardest school I've ever been to. Honestly, anytime I'm coming up to Broadway and I can just smell Butler Library and my armpits start sweating, my heart starts beating fast. I start looking at my email, am I late? But I realized that if I wanted to finish college, that I had to find a way to just sink my teeth in. And I realized that in all this time, the one thing I never, ever set out to do in school was to learn about myself. I remember, I was at Seton Hall University at one point, right after high school, and there was an African American Studies course offered there. And me and my black friends laughed at it. We were like, oh, why would we do that? We don't want people to think that college is supposed to be about more than you. It's supposed to be bigger than you. And then when I got to Columbia, I was like, you know what, let me try the other side of it. So I was an African American Studies major. I spent a lot of time, thank you.
We're so proud of that, because I don't think it was a department when you were here.
No, it was IRAS. It was
IRAS, right. Now it's a real official, triple ADS.
It's a huge thing. Yosef is, wow. But yeah, so I studied African American Studies, I studied anthropology, and I studied French. And it was really, really instrumental to my development as an artist, because I learned about African American artistic traditions. I learned that so many of the things that I was just doing naturally, I understood what call and response was all of a sudden. I understood, Yosef's not here, but he had this course, Intro to Studies in African American Studies, and Du Bois was a huge part of that class. And W.B. Du Bois became a massive part of how I came to understand myself better as an adult, his whole notions of double consciousness. And I think, I had a lot of great classes. It's tough. It's a toss-up between Carla Shedd's Race, Place, and Urban America, because it was, it's dense sociology, but she's who she is as a person, as a black woman. She understood that especially us Black students, what we were trying to get out of it, you know? And she made this sociology into something that felt familiar to me, and it drove me. And then I think the other class I took was with Dr. Cornell West. That was the other thing too. When I was here, I used to like sneak into, like for instance, like, oh, Michael Hausman, gotta shout out Michael Hausman. He allowed me to go to get into his producing class in grad film, Columbia. And then I did that for a semester, I did fine. But now that I was in the grad film, I blended in. So then I started taking more grad film classes.
Yeah.
Many of them I maybe shouldn't have been in, you know? So to say that Columbia had an influence on my creativity is an understatement. I mean, I know Thomas Roma has had some difficulties here, but Thomas Roma probably is the best class I ever had at Columbia because
In photography.
because we had this assignment every week. You have to take 8 pictures and you put them up on the wall in the photo lab. And Tom's thing was, every picture should be a 1,000-word essay, and every picture should reveal something about yourself that you can't take back. And if you do that, you're gonna reach somebody because you're gonna tell somebody's truth doing that. And I've just held on to that idea the entire way, you know? And now I'm in Hollywood telling people this, and like people are like, wow, you're like a guru. And I'm like, I got that from Columbia.
Right.
It's not me, I didn't go with that, you know?
Oh, wow. On that note.
And I know the song, if anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you wanna
wow. Well, what advice would you give to aspiring writers and filmmakers here in the audience tonight?
Oh, my advice to you is to write. If you're a writer, write every day. Don't take no for an answer from yourself. A lot of times, one of my favorite writers is Hubert Selby, and he wrote Last Exit in Brooklyn, a bunch of other great books. But he taught himself how to write in his 40s, how to write novels in his 40s, and he did that by transcribing his favorite novels. He literally would get Moby Dick and just rewrite Moby Dick. So I took that on. Any script that I loved, I would just start writing it, just to practice, you know. So I would say write every day, and nobody's born like with everything. You have to learn it, you know. So open yourself up to learning it. And then from the industry side, don't worry about the industry. Don't put that, if you're not in a place where you're in the mainstream business, that's a good place to be. That means you get to say whatever's on your mind. And what's crazy about it is when I started this process, I really thought that I had to conform to a certain thing. Oh, I totally forgot. And the other question, I shot my first documentary while I was at Columbia.
Yeah.
Peer Kids.
Your kids, yeah.
And you guys, and Columbia, I raised $50,000 at Columbia for that film. So, you know, the community was so supportive. But all that to say, buy a camera, go shoot the thing, make some mistakes. If you saw the first things I made, which one day they'll be out, but they're so different from this, but every movie you make, everything you write is teaching you how to write something better and make something better the next time. So don't put that pressure on yourself to just get it right away. Nobody gets it right away. It takes time, but if you show up every day and you're committed, anything is possible, you know?
Yeah. So the last question before I open up, I just want to, can you share with us a sneak peek of what's next?
Oh my, I can't really talk about much because it's not announced yet, but I have my next 3 movies lined up. I'm shooting them back to back.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
And will we get to screen here?
Of course.
Yes,
I plan to come back free food, free liquor.
Right.
I'm always going to come back.
Right. But we'll see it. We'll go in the movies. I took my family. So
you did go to the theater. We're cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've got those movies lined up. I'm at this point, my husband and I started a production company called Freedom Principle. Our whole mission as a company is to start conversations between the right and the left.
We want to get Chester here too.
And Chester's going to go to GS. Our kids are going to school here. They don't even know it. They're not even born yet, and they're going to Columbia. But yeah, I've got a lot going on, and I'm excited to share it with everyone.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. We can't thank you enough. My colleague Aviva Zablocki, I just want to recognize her because she has helped us put tonight together. Aviva's going to help monitor. We have 2 microphones. I know this is not a shy audience. So please feel free to line up here. Of course, Jeffrey, I could only count on you to be one of the first.
He's like that in class.
One of my favorite alums. So, and soon will be. He is actually a professor. Soon will be finishing his doctorate at Teachers College.
Fantastic.
So we're very, very proud.
That's great.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jeffrey Omar Patrick. I'm a GSer, 2013. Elegance and I studied, we came in together.
That's right. Right.
So, and I remember you telling me you were going to do big things. You tell me, big things. Now, I want to say something because being a doctoral student at Columbia University, you're not really available for film premieres, and you're not available to. You're busy, yes. Right?
Yes.
But I wanted to come here tonight to really tell you that I admire what you've been doing.
Thank you.
You understand? I see it, but I just can't attend what I would like to attend.
Oh, you're so sweet.
But after watching this film tonight, right, you have confirmed a lot of things that I've been studying for the last few years.
Oh, wow.
So listen, I'm actually here at Columbia University studying to find a cure for discrimination, which is a prime causal mechanism of racism and oppression, right? And when I'm watching your film, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, this is exactly what we need to see. There's a behavior change that's needed, right? And Elegance, you hit it. You hit the button. You hit the button because I'm a heterosexual male, right? No, now listen. My heterosexuality should be utilized to care for and defend for the homosexual population. You understand? Just like your whiteness should be used as an allyship to deteriorate racism and oppression. Can you understand where I'm coming from with this? Yeah. And how he really hit it to show us that the trajectory of that story. And I'm really proud of you for that.
Thank you, man.
You understand?
Thank you.
I want to ask you a question. What do you think we need to do as a society to change our behavior towards the others?
Oh man, this is
I want. It's a heavy question. It's a heavy question. It's a heavy question. But you're a heavy guy. Is he not?
I mean, I think the answer. It's tough. I don't love talking about things like this too much because I'm in Hollywood. They don't read between the lines. Where they say, "Oh, he's just radical, cancel him." But to me, I think reparations for African Americans who were enslaved, we need to be paid for our ancestors' labor. Because I think that, when you talk about discrimination, like I think a lot of people get it mixed up, and I think racism, all you have to do is change the opinions of white people and that'll make it better. No, what racism, as I understand it, is like, for instance, right, on the plantation, you, as a woman, you might begin making babies at 12, 13 years old, right? And then your enslaver is gonna say, well, those black girls love having sex. And then you get free, and then they say, oh, those black girls have babies so young. Do you know what I'm saying? It's been done to you for a profit. And once that profit is made, right, then you get casted as a thing that could never participate in the mainstream economy. It's not for you, right? Because of who you are. That's not true. It's not for you, because if it was for you, you'd have to be paid for your labor. So I think, to me, the umbrella answer, the end of capitalism. But how do you end capitalism? Pay black people for their enslavement. Pay women for their enslavement in the home. for all those years.
Yeah.
And watch how quickly this thing shifts around.
You like from
That's what I think. But you know,
quick. From my undergrad, I studied film also.
yes.
And when I went to Hollywood, could you imagine what I was like?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Okay, next one.
Hey,
Hello.
how are you?
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Shavar Marcus. My question is the movie. So the movie, you basically got kicked out. You was dealing with that homelessness. Did you know that you wanted to be a filmmaker then when you was young?
It's interesting. One of my hustles when I was homeless was stealing art books
Okay.
because you can sell them for a lot of money,
Right.
more than anything else I ever stole. And so I stolen Spike Lee's book. I'd stolen Pedro Almodovar's book, like literally 70, 80 different of the top filmmakers in the world. I've read their books by the time I got into the Marine Corps. I don't know that if I was actively thinking about being a filmmaker in that moment, you know.
But subconscious.
But when I signed up to the Marines, my recruiter, he's the one who suggested I be a filmmaker, not knowing this past. So when he said, because like basically I scored high on the entrance exam. It's an ASVAB, that's what they call it. Though I'm sure there's many mil vets in the audience that know it. And I scored really, really high. And my recruiter was like, well, you qualify for every job in the Marine Corps. And he's like, listen, you're black. Most people would send you to be a cook or a mechanic or a grunt, whatever. I'm gonna mark off what I know to be the top 3 jobs. First job was intelligence. I'm not a snitch. It's not. I'm not. The other job was journalism. I'm way too opinionated, too biased to be a good journalist. And the last job was filmmaking. So, you know, I don't know how, I mean, I definitely made the decision by the time I had shot my 300th hour of Pure Kids while a student at Columbia. And mind you, I was shooting that movie like through midterms and like, you know what I'm saying, finals, and writing papers and going out to film and all that. So by the time I got to Columbia, I decided to commit to it. But I didn't know when I was homeless that I would be a filmmaker. I didn't really know. I knew I loved movies.
Okay, and so my next question
Okay.
is, when you were dealing with the homelessness after your mother kicked you out, did you have any other support that would? Where did the idea come from to even go to the military? This is a 2-part question.
My mother is the one who suggested the military to me because I was in a homeless shelter and I asked her if I could come back. And she said, are you still gay? And I was like, yeah. She's like, well, you can't be in my house like that. Why don't you join the military and straighten yourself up? And this is in 2005. So this is like, you know, Kanye, it's like George Bush doesn't like black people, all of that. And I believed Kanye when he said that. And I don't believe him anymore. Back then I did. You know, but I went back to the shelter to sleep, and I looked around that room, and most of the men in that room were black. Most of them had been in the shelter system for 20, 30, some even more, right? And I had to ask myself, is this my future? Is this where I'm supposed to land? And my spirit said, no, I'm not supposed to be here. The next day, the recruiter approached me. And I was like, if I can look half as good in that uniform as you do, sign me up.
That's great.
All right, so this was a.
I'm
gonna let him go, but this was a 2-part question. So, do you feel that your success from the filmmaking came from your status in the military, or the fact that you had to suffer what you suffered with by being gay?
I think every part of your life, if you're an artist, you're channeling it into what you do. I can't say that. What I can say is my ability to defend myself came from the military.
Okay.
My ability, my name is Elegance, right? That's my given name. I didn't choose that name.
Okay.
So pretty much any room I've ever walked in, everyone's known that I'm black and I'm gay. They've assumed it. You know what I'm saying? And they were absolutely right. And as a result, I was excluded from a lot of the things that straight men do that honestly in a patriarchal society, these are the places where where men spread privilege to each other on the playing field, at the bar. When I joined the Marine Corps, I got a chance to learn that language.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
And again, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ashvin Jagadisan. Can everyone hear me okay? All right.
Hey.
I just want to say I was really taken aback by the searing nature of the film, but I was especially taken aback by the portrayal of the character of your mother. And I don't know, like, despite the homophobia, I couldn't help but just be in awe of the sort of moments of tenderness that existed between French and his mom. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to ask, when you were writing those scenes, did you feel like you were getting to a place emotionally that was quite difficult to put on paper, as you had to represent your mother in a place of integrity despite her unfortunate views?
Yeah, it was really, it took the time that it needed to take to get the script together, because I definitely wrote less generous versions of her life. But like I said, when she was killed and I got a chance to go to her house, that was the last polish I did on the script. And in that moment, you realize that everybody's a human being, even the bad ones. And you know, my mom was orphaned. There's things that I learned about her after she passed. Like, what I always say is, like, you know, when you're living, you're juggling all these plates, you know? You're spinning all these plates, and then when you die, they all come crashing to the ground. And if you're lucky enough, you have someone in your life that loves you, that's going to put those pieces back together, and maybe you get a chance to understand that person a little bit better. And I can say that was my experience after she passed. I started to see, like, oh, I didn't understand. I knew she was an orphan at 10. I didn't understand how that affected her until I got to go through her things. And I came away with knowing that you cannot give someone something that you haven't been given. It's not possible. So that pushed me to a space of forgiveness. And then once I forgave her, all the characters, everybody in this movie is based off of someone I know, you know, and in some degree, some things that have happened to me. But when I started to see her in 3D, I saw everybody else in 3D.
Thank you.
Thank you for your film.
Thank you. Thank you for your question.
Over here, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Orina. I work on Wall Street, but there's an artist in me. Okay. So I'm making a small little film.
Wonderful.
Right now. I'm the writer, and that's my director right there.
Okay.
She was sitting next to me.
Okay.
So we fought all the time throughout this process.
Yes.
So my question to you is, I'm wondering, you being the scriptwriter and the director, you know, in one person, does that, you know, make it easier for your storytelling? Or and if you have to pick one, which one would you actually rather do?
I don't pick either. I do both. And it's funny, in Hollywood, now that people know I can write, I'm often given scripts to direct that need me to write on them too, you know? So I don't separate the two of them. And I shoot documentaries as well. I do television commercials, TV shows, fiction and nonfiction. So I'm complete, like I personally have what I call cinematic dyslexia, and I don't see a difference between documentary and fiction. And then the writing is kind of like my way of mediating that confusion, if you will. In terms of like, does it make it easier for me? No, if you catch me in the right moment when I'm writing something, I'm talking to myself, I'm arguing, like people will like, what's wrong with him? And I'm literally playing characters out loud in real life, or I'm acting like a character somewhere else. Yeah, I'm fucking nuts. I know, it's not easier.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
And I just want to recognize Orina Chang and Joe Ehrlich, who both serve on our board at Columbia School of Gender Studies. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Keep writing.
Davey.
Hello, my name is Davey.
Hey.
I'm a current GS student and also a veteran. And also
Thank you for your service.
I'm also the vice president of the GS LGBTQ club. GS Alliance. I think one of my questions, I'm just in awe about your movie. I think you bring so much of things that I've always seemed to be very separated. Things like being a veteran, right? Or being creative in a way, kind of bring all of that together into one. And one of the things I always combat is like, while I'm studying here at GS, like, you know, everybody have this imposter syndrome, be like, oh, I'm kind of always want to downplay my experience in the military. How do you think your time being a Marine, like all the skill, all the experience you had, has make you a different producer or director than everybody else around?
Oh man, well, first of all, the military, hurry up and wait. That's such a part of military culture, and that is film culture. For sure. You hustle and hustle and hustle just to get there on time, and then you get there and you got to wait 6 hours for the sun to be in the right place, you know? But more than anything, I think the leadership skills that I got in the Marine Corps have really not beautifully translated into my professional career, in that, like, this film, like, this is my first fiction film. Prior to this, I did short films, right? So my normal production would be like 4 to 6 days. Maybe it's $20,000, you know? But I ended up, on this set, I had 150 people that were working. And like, I'll just give you a story. I was on set and I was working with Jeremy, and it was like 3 days in and we were on the rifle range. And I felt like, man, we found our love language. Like, I huddle with my actors. Even that, the way I talk to the people that are technically working for me, I learned in the Marine Corps, it's much better to talk with people than at people. You get more, you know, just little things like that. But anyway, I found it. I'm like, I got the language. And I walked back to my video village, like, really sure of myself. Like, I can do this. I can direct. What are you talking about? And then as I'm walking to the screen, I was like, everybody's got their hand up. Hey, Elegance, hey, Elegance, hey, Elegance. I turn around. It's 10 of my cast. And I'm like, oh, man, I have to be this clear with all of them, right? So I give my notes to all of them. I'm like, I'm good. And then as I'm walking back to the video village, my cinematographer's got his hand up. My production designer's got his hand up, or her hand up. So you start to realize, oh, wait, all 150 people on this set have to have the clarity of this moment. And I think the only reason I was calm in that situation was because I've had to make the mission in much less favorable conditions than 115 degree. Like, we shot this movie in 19 days.
Wow.
We got shut down because of COVID. We were promised 23 days plus pickups. We lost a bunch of funding in our shutdown. So I'm literally, like, but when we picked up for that last week, I had about 80 pages of script to shoot, which means I did not have time to shoot 80 pages. So in the moment, I have to now rewrite it, right? Reset every worker on set, have actors who are pissed at me because now they've lost lines. I've got to make sure they feel confident, that I'm still confident in them. And I still have to make a movie that could hopefully, you know, not only change my life, but every actor in this. These guys don't work unless someone gives them a chance to work. So I have to do right by them. That, being able to handle that pressure, I think is the Marine Corps, for sure. And growing up with a single parent mom in the 80s, but yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ella, come.
Hi, I'm Ella Ehrlich, Joe Ehrlich's daughter.
Yay.
I was wondering, is there a movie or movies that you would say had the biggest effect on your life?
Yes, there's a lot of movies that have that effect. Paris is Burning is one of the big ones for me. I wish I directed it. What else is there? I thought All About My Mother by Pedro Almodovar is a big movie for me. I love movie stars as well. I'm a huge Marlon Brando.
Cher?
Huh?
Cher, who?
Who?
Cher, who do you love?
Oh, I love Brando. I was joking with Raul Castillo in this film that he's like my Mexican Brando.
Yes.
I finally found my Brando. Rebel Without a Cause is a big movie for me. There's Killer of Sheep by Charles Burnett. There's so many. there's another documentary I just saw recently that kind of blew my mind. Oh, Riotsville is a new documentary I just saw that was like incredible.
Okay.
I watch 15 movies probably a day.
Wow.
It's just movies are always on in my house.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you like movies?
Love movies.
What's your favorite movie, Ella?
See?
I'm gonna go with Taxi Driver Martin
That's one of my
Scorsese
yes.
or Fight Club David Fincher.
Yes.
And just a little tiny bit, Martin Scorsese was there that night on August 8th.
I met Martin
right?
Scorsese at our New York Film Festival premiere, and we had a whole moment. We shook hands and talked for about 10 minutes, and he promised to watch my movie. I don't know if he did, but
Well, I'm jealous.
yeah, I
All
got to
right.
meet Scorsese.
Thank you, Ella. And
Good question.
Hi, my name is Leanna Santa Anna. I graduated GS May last year in ethnic studies. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I'm also an actor, but I was really drawn to what you said about self-possession as being novel, particularly for the Black body. And I think that's something that I can relate to as a person of color navigating entertainment industries. And so often it's rare and very hard to feel as though I own my labor, particularly as I'm like auditioning and pitching my own work to people.
Right.
And I'm just wondering if you have any advice, or like, I just want to know like how you stay grounded as you continue to navigate this industry.
I think the short answer, the non-nuanced answer is, having been homeless for 10 years, I know intimately how small every person is and how big the universe is. And I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for the kindness of people. So I always remind myself to be kind to people, even when I'm stressed out. Talk to, one of the things that helped me out a lot in my career when I first started, especially when I first started going to Los Angeles, get to know the secretaries, get to know the assistants, get to know the people who are talking to the people who you want to say yes to your projects, and treat them really, really well. Know their names, know what goes on in their lives, because that's how you start to kind of gain allies on the other side of the wall between wanting to get casted or wanting to be greenlit and actually being greenlit. It's all those, I don't want to call them little because they're not little, they're like essential. The people who run everything couldn't do it without people like that. So that's my advice. Be kind to people and be kind to yourself. And I don't feel defined or validated by A24 or Game Changer. I feel like I'm collaborating with them. Do you know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, I know that I shot a movie with no money, shot 400 hours of footage, and I cut that movie together, and it ended up going places. So if nobody in Hollywood ever wants to say yes to me again, I know I can say yes to myself.
yeah,
You know?
Thank you. It's telling me to wrap up, but I'm one question, if you could do really quick, and I'm sorry to the other two, very sorry, but you could hopefully get later. Go ahead, last question, we'll end.
Well, I'm glad I made the cut. My name is Kasi Neblet, and I graduated from SEAS in 2017.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Also, thank you for being here. I would say that I am an engineer rebelling as a writer at the moment. But my question for you is this. I think that whenever you put your art out into the world, it's very vulnerable and liberating at the same time, oddly enough. And I'm wondering, with this piece, were you completely unleashed, or was there anything that you held back, or any fear that you had that you know that in your next project, you're not going to be holding back again?
Yeah, that's a great question.
question. Yeah.
Wow, that's a writer's question. Yeah, I mean, it's a mixed bag, right? First of all, again, it's my first feature. Those who will, like yourself, who will get an opportunity to make a first feature one day, I can't say that A24 was really, really supportive of my director's vision. However, people will lean on you when it's your first feature, and you're not going to get everything that you want. So if there's anything about this, I would have loved a more kind of like overtly radical conversation in the film, right? I feel like I'm a part of it is like I'm still a student in many ways in my mind. So I'm really trying to master subtext and using the frame to say things rather than dialogue to say things. But when I'm taking the movie out around the world, I feel like there are some points that maybe I could have actually put in the writing, right? And I don't ever want to decide what the piece is for the audience, but I definitely have things that I want to say more. And I would have made it more, like my next movies would be way more sex and way more just wild creativity. I mean, it's strange. Like I feel like the thing is like you don't ever feel like anything is truly done. You don't ever really feel satisfied, right? You're always kind of like you do something like, oh wow, I can do that. Maybe I can do this next thing up here. You know what I'm saying? So in that regard, like my camera angles and we shot this for $3 million. We didn't have, that was the crazy part. I remember when we were casting it, speaking of Gabby, I called her up and like my producer, Effie Brown, was like, listen, when you talk to these big actors, I want you to apologize to them for only having $3 million. Most of my movies cost like $400. What do you mean? $3 million, so like, but in that regard, there are certain camera things I couldn't do. There's things under the water I couldn't do. I couldn't travel very much to tell the story, right? I had to figure out how to get it all done in that location because we didn't have tons and tons of cash on hand to travel around and do all sorts of, buy the huge jib arms and all the things that I was dreaming about using on this film. I had to like make it with what I had, So now that I've done that well enough, the next film, I'll get even more things to play with and then so on and so forth, it scales up. But, I don't have any regrets, I'm proud of the work, but there's always more that you want,
Yeah. Elegance, thank you again so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We now invite everyone to join us for a reception right out downstairs.
In the lobby.
In the lobby downstairs. Thank you again.
Thank you.
That was wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Oh, that was amazing. It's been such a great guy. So many amazing.